President Trump's base cheered his posture on Iran. The leaders of France, Germany, and the UK all spoke out against his decision to leave the landmark deal in limbo. CBS News correspondent Elizabeth Palmer is in Tehran with the reaction there.
Within an hour, Iran's president took to the air, pushing back hard. Hassan Rouhani called Donald Trump's accusations abusive and downright wrong. Certainly people watching here were stunned by Mr. Trump's claim that back in 2015, the regime was on the verge of collapse. He's really crazy, said shopkeeper Reza Abdul-Maliki. Really crazy. Donald Trump, Rouhani said, apparently doesn't understand the U.S. can't change a multinational agreement all by itself. So for that reason, Iran will stay in the nuclear deal. However, he hinted that Iran may escalate its conventional weapons program, possibly its ballistic missile development. For millions of Iranians, especially the young, who counted on improved relations with the U.S. and the rest of the world to bring investment, jobs and reform, this is a black day. They fear hardliners will now gain ground, arguing the U.S. can't be trusted. The only two powers in the region who were cheering are Iran's arch enemies, Saudi Arabia and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
If the Iran deal is left unchanged, one thing is absolutely certain. In a few years' time, the world's foremost terrorist regime will have an arsenal of nuclear weapons.
Elizabeth Palmer joins us now. Elizabeth, Iran's foreign minister tweeted, quote, allegations, threats and profanity will never intimidate Iranians. What kind of response will we see in the coming days and weeks?
Well, there's been a war of words today launched between Washington and Tehran. But the Iranians are skilled players at this sort of posturing on the international stage. They're sophisticated. They understand that President Trump has now kicked the ball into Congress's court, and nothing may happen for a while. So in spite of the rhetoric, they're going to take a step back and plan their next move, but really wait on the United States.
How much of an impact did the lifting of sanctions have on average Iranians? And are they worried now that some of those sanctions could come back?
When the sanctions came off after the nuclear deal was signed, they only partially came off. The European sanctions came off, some of the big restrictions on Iranian banks moving money came off, but the U.S. kept its sanctions on. And the U.S. Treasury is widely feared by international banks who think if they do business with Iran, they may get fined, that the U.S. Treasury will find them in breach of the U.S.'s own sanctions. So the net effect is that although everybody hoped there'd be a great flow of investment into Iran after the deal was signed, it hasn't materialized. So Iranians' lives haven't changed very much, but they hope they'd change for the better. In fact, life has got harder here because not only was there no foreign investment, Iran's principal source of income, which is oil revenue, was cut very sharply because the price of oil went down.
Right.
So it's been a hard time in Iran, and people haven't really, now they're not looking for any improvement anytime soon. People are very disappointed, very jaded.
This is obviously one of the biggest stories in this country, Elizabeth. How much coverage is the story of President Trump not certifying the deal getting where you are?
Well, less than an hour after President Trump had finished his speech, the Iranian president was on television here giving a live speech, visibly angry, and it will have been watched very closely across the country. The fallout in the newspapers and on websites will begin tomorrow, and it's going to be in all the headlines, but you can tell from Iran's foreign minister tweeting about it right away tonight that it's going to be the #1 topic of conversation in every cafe and in every university classroom and in many homes.
Besides Saudi Arabia and Israel, which you mentioned celebrated the decertification, Trump's move, what will this do you think, to U.S. relations in the Middle East?
Well, it will complicate them. The President Trump's words have elicited criticism from both Russia and China. Russia and China are sometimes partners, sometimes enemies in this region, as there's a great jockeying and shifting for power. And this new friction point is just going to complicate things.
Elizabeth Palmer for us in Tehran. Elizabeth, thank you.
Pleasure.